so far, the President of the United States has been MIA. And Kamala, she's not giving interviews. She's not really saying anything regards it. Meanwhile, we are sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. And we should be seeing federal agencies like FEMA mobilizing and federal monies flowing into these places to bring relief immediately and to restore power, water, basic infrastructure. The Biden administration is pretending as though it's really not happening. That is, this is all part of the globalist, agenda. They do not care about people.
I mean, they do care about killing people, and you're coddled all day, which makes you like yourself and feel important. Again, it's a sort of Faustian bargain, because you feel really important because there's someone running around after you, but you don't realize that they're running around after you because they think you're a moron.
That's the life of Joe Biden now. That's the life of Kamala Harris now. They're actors, but whoever is writing the script for her, because she's just an actor, that person is a Marxist. She's just a sock puppet. Everyone knew that he wasn't in charge. He was just an actor. He was just the guy that was chosen by someone else behind the scene, and it's the same with Kamala Harris. Welcome to another edition of WTF, the world of Taunton and Fox. It should be the worlds of Taunton and Fox. It's plural. It's your world is not exactly my world. And what's happening in my world right now, Laza, is we have a natural disaster in my part of the country. Not exactly here. It's a little further to the east, but you've probably seen it in the news. A hurricane, which, once it comes inland, it's heavy rains. It becomes tropical storm. And these are biblical storms. And we're talking about, houses being swept away and rivers overflowing, dams bursting. It's the highways being washed out, all of this. And so far, the President of the United States has been MIA. And Kamala, she's not giving interviews. She's not really saying anything regards it. Meanwhile, we are sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. That's what's happening here. What's happening in your world? That's the world of Taunton. What's the world of Fox?
I want to come back to that. The world of Fox is that as of today, in the United Kingdom, it is illegal to keep a chicken, an undocumented chicken. So even though, we did ask for people to be documented in the United Kingdom, we did. We quite like to know where people came from, who they are. It's a sort of standard thing that we have in life. And it seems that not people that have arrived on boats, but chickens, yes. So I am currently in breach of the law. I have 4. Well, what I'm saying about my 4 chickens, is that they are, they're asylum seekers. And, they need to be afforded the protection of asylum seekers because, these chickens are from a very, very diverse background. One of them is a Rhode Island Red. So that's not native born to England. Another one is very dark coloured. It's a very diverse chicken. And another one is sort of white. So it's got a lot of privilege. And I'm worried that the white one may not receive refugee status. Oh, and on another bonus level, today Britain closed down its final coal-fired power station, so we're all going to freeze to death as well. So look, it's great, but let's go back to America. So the hurricane, what was its name? Helena? No, what was the name?
Yep.
Oh, I got it right. Oh, wow. So Hurricane Helena hits America, and then it comes inshore. The winds slow down and the rain goes mega. And this is the Carolinas it's affecting mostly. Is that right?
Yeah, mostly the Carolinas, not exclusively. Tennessee has been hit, North Georgia, West Virginia, but yes, hit very, very heavily. Listen, the southeast part of the country, we're used to violent storms. Along the coast, the Alabama, Florida coast, the Carolina coast, hurricanes are common. We do have them, and people rebuild and move on with their lives. By the time they get to where I am, they've become heavy tropical storms, but just in the normal course of things, doesn't require a hurricane. We get heavy, heavy thunderstorms. Tornadoes are common. These things do happen. And we're used to dealing with them and moving forward. Just to say the Northeast or, other parts of the country, the northern parts of the country are used to dealing with ice storms, snowstorms, things like that we never get here, or at least get here, once in, every 25 years. But this is different. This is a much, much larger catastrophe. It is a state of emergency, and we should be seeing federal agencies like FEMA mobilizing and federal monies flowing into these places to bring relief immediately and to restore power, water, basic infrastructure. The Biden administration is pretending as though it's really not happening, and they really don't care. And this is there is the world of Taunton and there is the world of Fox, and together there's a Venn diagram in which the globalists, are doing what they do, and there is a peculiar link between chickens and the complete dereliction of duty as it relates to this storm here in the United States. And this is all part of the globalist, agenda. They do not care about people. I said this recently to a Trump advisor. I really think that your messaging needs to be that we're pro-child, we're pro-families, we are pro-people, we love people, we care about people. Our opponents are fundamentally anti-child, they are anti-family, and they are anti-human. They don't care about people. And we're seeing this again and again and again. Their messaging is about the environment. They will use this storm as a means of pontificating yet more on climate rather than actually seeking to bring relief to actual people. They don't care about people. I love what Dostoevsky said, 150 years ago, almost 143 years ago, where he says in The Brothers Karamazov that the European liberal, the typical European liberal, loves man in general, just not in particular. They like the idea of man. They don't care about the individual. And that's what it comes to. They don't actually care about people.
Yeah, they do care about killing people because we discussed this last week. They really enjoy that. So, Ukraine, obviously, we're going to, America's taxpayers are still going to pay for that. But I heard a description of the corridor of this storm's progress as being a 150-mile wide, just path of complete destruction. And then you think back to Katrina, and and they're saying cars full of people who were just caught by this thing and are very sadly deceased. And you think about Katrina and how it was, you had Sean Penn in a boat and Sigourney Weaver crying, and it was all very, very serious. But this storm apparently didn't, as you say, it didn't happen, and one wonders why. Because there's no political significance to it in an election year in America. And then just to take it back to the chickens, because it is linked. The whole thing is linked. It's like they care more about the chickens than they do about the elderly in the United Kingdom, because the elderly in the United Kingdom are going to face their first year without a wind fuel allowance. Now you can have whatever views you want about whether people should get a free fuel allowance or not, but they're being deprived of it. So people have it sort of sewn into their budgeting that that amount of money is going to be they're okay. They're going to be warm. They're not going to have to choose between eating and heating. But all the money that we also send to Ukraine, and we also send to the chicken police to come and check on my undocumented migrant asylum-seeking chicken, that they've got time for. And yet we will now see a slow down in the migrants coming over on the boats from France while they throw their documents over the side. And, there'll be a slowdown on the fact that they're given a really nice hotel room and free money and a free phone. And the chickens will live in fear of getting deported or made into halal chicken burgers to be worshipped at the altar of diversity, so that the sun god is appeased, and therefore the sun god may or may not decide to, kill a bunch of everybody. It's just these people. I honestly, I must be of the mind that we are staring down, like you say, sort of anti-human cult. What are they? What is their vision? Oh, sorry to interrupt my own train of thought. Neither of us have wished each other Happy Black History Month yet.
I was just thinking that you can improve the chances of your white chicken's survival if you just happen to have a can of brown or black spray paint, around the house. His chances of surviving will increase markedly. But Happy Black History Month to you.
Well, that's everyday sexism as well from you, because the white chicken happens to be a female chicken. But if your everyday sexism from you is standard.
Is it a lesbian
of color? Yeah,
then
I'm sure
the chances of survival go even higher.
We had
Is this a trans chicken?
It better be. It would be great. I'll see if it comes out in makeup tomorrow morning. We also, but on the Black History Month thing, we had a Labour MP, and when you look at your rulers and those who represent you, and you just sort of hang your head in your hands, you just go, how can these people be in charge? There's a woman, an MP, a Labour MP today called Dawn Butler, and I encourage our our listeners to go and pull up her Twitter feed. She's an MP in the UK, and she does a little rap about being the chosen race. And, why do you want to go and burn yourself like Joe Biden as he sort of swaps sides from front to back as people drown across the deep South of America? And she just sits and goes, I'm the chosen one. We came from the original place. And it's like, I might do a white version of this and see how well that goes. Which I'm planning on for later. I need to get a good backing track. She's got a really good kind of backing track, but I'm thinking about it.
Well, this takes us in a very interesting direction, something that I want to see if I can tease out of you. But before we get to that, two little bits of news. First, we accidentally saw your dad in a movie last night. And I say accidentally because we're just sitting there and looking for something to watch. So we start watching the first Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr., and your dad dies a horrible death in a bathtub in that. And I'm going, I know him. That's Laurence's dad. I know. Well, that was Laurence's dad. He's now dead. But we saw him briefly, tell him that we thought his performance was wonderful.
Will do.
The next bit of news is that I did manage to get you into this invitation-only event with President Trump. Now,
Woo!
They have not announced the specific location as yet because the Secret Service, and I do hope that I got your name correct on like your passport name, because they don't match up. You're not getting into
Laurence with a U, Paul, middle name Fox.
That much I know, but it's I just wanted to make sure it doesn't say on there like, Edward Laurence Fox, or something.
No.
Got to make sure that we get that correct. And now, when I say invitation only private event with Donald Trump, it may be a private event of 3,000 people with Donald Trump. I have no idea how many people are going to be at this thing, but we will go, the two of us.
Yeah.
So I was allowed to bring someone else, and they told me that you were acceptable once they checked you out. So I think that you are now in.
Good.
This is where I want to go. You have told me some very interesting stories of the acting profession, and just, the kind of people who begin to think of themselves as more important than they really are. Now, going back to the globalists, going back to the kind of people who are implementing these policies, let's try to enter into their heads and think the way they think. Do you feel like your career has given you any insights into the thinking of people like this, who really believe that they're entitled, that they're better than other people, that the rules do not apply to them, and they can do whatever the hell they want?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why they get into it in the first place. A lot of them, it's for status. So a lot of people that get into, and it's more and more so nowadays, that people just want to be famous. Their life will somehow have meaning if they have fame. So it certainly applies to showbiz. I think it applies, weirdly, I think it applies across the board. So someone who wants to control over other people wants to, a significant proportion of people would become a policeman or work in the judiciary. But show business has its own particular vileness to it, I suppose, because it is the paroxysm. Is that the right word? What does paroxysm mean?
Spasms.
Oh, okay. So it is the right word. It's the paroxysm between truth and lies. So it's there are people that get into the performing arts because they want to use the vehicle of fiction to tell the truth in some way. And then there are people that just get into it so they can get a Mercedes to work. And it seems that we're lionizing the people that want to get the Mercedes to work, because, if you get a Mercedes to work and you see someone drive past picking up trash and putting it in the back of a lorry, you must, I did, and I have had this experience, thought, I must be so much better than you. Look at me, sat in a Mercedes on my way to work, and you're just doing the trash like trash doers do. And you forget that sort of fundamental bond between humans, and the whole system is designed to make you a spoiled baby. And I don't know if I've told you this, properly, but the reason why they send you a Mercedes to pick you up in the morning is not because they value you in any way. It's because they want to make sure that their £50,000 to £100,000 daily budget is not ruined by some silly actor who went out on a big bender the night before and can't be bothered to turn up to work the next day. That's why there's a Mercedes at the door. Then when you get to work, you get out of the Mercedes and you're greeted by a person with a walkie-talkie. And they're like,
let's just say when you were doing Inspector Lewis or
yeah,
in a movie or something, yeah.
Anything like that. So they would go, they wouldn't call you your real name. They'd go, that's an arrival on Hathaway. So that's the first thing you hear at like 5:45 in the morning. You're like, hello, hi, I'm real. And they're like, okay. So I just sort of wander off towards the food place to go get myself a bacon sandwich, a halal bacon sandwich, usually, if I could find one. And they'd be like, Hathaway's going to the breakfast bar. Hathaway's en route to the breakfast bar. And then someone would come back to them and go, no, he's meant to go to his trailer and you're meant to get him breakfast. So it'd be like, Hathaway, could you please go to your trailer so I'll bring you breakfast. I'm like, no, I'm perfectly capable of getting myself breakfast. Thanks very much. And they're like, well, we've got you in makeup at 7:12, so you need to be finished by 7:12. I go, it's fine. I'm just going to have some breakfast and then I'll be right with you. Because and you're coddled all day, which makes you like yourself and feel important. Again, it's a sort of Faustian bargain, because you feel really important because there's someone running around after you, but you don't realize that they're running around after you because they think you're a moron. So it's this sort of, and it happens all day till the end of the day, and then you go home. And they literally, they have a word for when you go to the loo. They call it 10100. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe you'll know it's a military thing or something. They go, Hathaway's 10100, Hathaway's 10100. And they say it like it's a national emergency, and we need to know whether we need to launch now on Korea and Russia, or whether we just, it's like he's gone. And you live in this world, this completely shielded, mollycoddled world with other human beings who have much more important jobs than you do, which are time sensitive in a way that yours isn't. And no wonder it creates monsters. No wonder it creates these people who think, the Barbara Streisands of this world and the Robert De Niro's of this world, who just think that whatever they say is in some way deeply meaningful to everybody else, because they've been treated like everything they say is deeply meaningful, because that's how you're treated on a film set. But I've been interested because we turned on the TV last night, the missus and I, and we watched something called Terror, or like, I can't. I'll find out what it was called. But it was this guy. It was 2 hours and 6 minutes long to start with.
It's a movie?
I just need to, sorry, Jonathan, let me just start that bit again because I need to give it context. So we turned on the TV last night, and we watched a thing called Rebel Ridge, because Lizzie's always like, Rebel, that sounds fun. And the trailer was pretty good. And it's a recent offering from Netflix, and it's about a guy who it's 2 hours, 6 minutes long. So you're always sort of, oh, really? And it was about a guy who was trying to deliver some bail money for his cousin. And he was just dealt with by some, crooked white cops, and he was a black guy. And it was sort of about how horrible white people are and how calm he was as a person. And it went on for 2 hours and 6 minutes. And I just thought to myself, all of the great things about show business are not in this film. So the first thing you want in a movie, the first thing you want in a movie is you want a very unstable male protagonist who's got a lot of issues, which, that all of those movies, the Die Hards, what was the one with Danny Glover and Mel Gibson? Those
Lethal Weapon.
The Lethal Weapons, the Eddie Murphy movies, all of these things, there's a sort of crazed lunatic male protagonist, and the camera sort of slowly pans across, and there's some empty vodka bottles and whiskey bottles, and then it goes around the corner of a bedroom door, and you see this kind of guy like flat out blind drunk in the morning, obviously staying in a motel because his family has kicked him out. He's the worst.
The Sherlock Holmes character, same thing.
Yeah, well, he would have just nicked it straight from that. But it was, you got this idea that there's a man with a mountain to climb. Already, he's got a mountain to climb. And then this incurably hot woman, for some reason, falls in love with him. For no reason whatsoever. But he's a good family man, and he makes sure that he goes and checks on his kids. And there's always a scene where he knocks on the door, and the door opens, and this scowling woman comes out and he goes, I'm here to see Johnny. And she's like you care, and you get all of that. And then he saves the world, and he do Armageddon, and he drops off a spaceship at his kids. That was the structure of filmmaking. But Rebel Ridge decides to do a totally different idea, which is the guy is like this sort of plastic action man figure of a leading man who is, he's very, very handsome, and he's a really jolly good actor as well, so I'll give him that. But he's permanently calm. He never loses his temper. So there's no Bruce Willis holding up a gun against their wardrobe door going, who is it? Who is it, Carol? I'm going to put two in the door. There's none of that. He's just permanently calm. And then when you meet the person who's going to help him out, the attorney who's going to help him out, she's a non-binary. So that they're not going to shag at any point during the film. So you're just like, oh my God. There's not even going to be a bit where he just gets so angry and grabs her, or she gets so angry and grabs him, and they have a smooch, and then they fall in love, and then you know what the story is. You just had to watch this guy be really, really calm. You had to wait for 2 hours. And then after 2 hours, he got pissed off and killed everyone. And that was it. And I was just like, the films are dead. They killed our culture. But the interesting thing was this big, muscly guy. And I kept saying to Lizzie while we were watching the film, I said, he hasn't been to the gym once in the whole film. He's huge. Surely he's got to go to the gym at some point.
It's all some kind of performance enhancing drug, I'm sure.
Mm. Well, no, I'm sure he worships at the altar of his body. Like, that's the other thing I don't like about Hollywood is you don't get, everyone is now well built, even the bad guy. Even the old bad guy is really like, "Whoa." And you're like, that's not the world I walk around in. So you're already disassociating me again, like the guy picking you up and going, Laurence Hathaway has arrived at the, you're disassociating me from the reality of what it is to be alive, which is you don't walk around and see people jacked 24 hours a day. You just don't. And it seems to be a new rule in Hollywood. You've got to have like 40-inch biceps, and the women have to have really like lank hair and all be non-binary, and that you're not an object of sexual desire. You're a powerful woman in your own right. And I thought, what a soulless waste of time this movie is. Where's Kim Basinger to grab the guy at some point and snog him? Where is it? What, sorry, I'm rambling, but that's how I feel.
I bring up the subject of Hollywood and the treatment of people like that because at no point in history, at least in Western history, modern Western history, has there been a more showbiz element to politics, meaning there's always been some element of glitz and glamour. Reagan was famous for understanding the cameras and being able to communicate directly to the American people. He understood effective showmanship as a politician. So that part has always been there. But now what you're describing, you getting picked up in a car, being brought to the set, handlers, Hathaway is on the scene, and taking you everywhere. That's the life of Joe Biden now. That's the life of Kamala Harris now. They're actors. And I had this discussion with actually a friend of mine whose book is sitting right over here, Paul Reed, who is a Churchill biographer. And he's certainly left of where I sit. And he was arguing with me just a bit, saying, Kamala Harris isn't a Marxist. You keep saying she's a Marxist. And I was thinking, well, I should restate that. If you mean that she's not a Marxist because she's not intelligent enough to actually understand Marxism and to articulate any kind of ideological point of view, then I'm in agreement with you. But whoever is writing the script for her, because she's just an actor, that person is a Marxist. She's just the sock puppet that is saying what she's told to say. But it's pretty incredible because we all know that when Biden was president, and I know that technically speaking, he's president now, even though he pretty well is never, to be seen or heard from. It seems there's no one in charge.
What? But why?
Everyone knew that he wasn't in charge. He was just an actor. He was just the guy that was chosen by someone else behind the scene. And it's the same with Kamala Harris. It doesn't matter who it is because they're not voicing their own ideas. They're actors speaking from a script.
They are. And nothing has proved that more than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Same in the UK.
Well, also, it's the same with stars, and as you do when you work in show business, you work out, people can turn anyone into a star they want to turn into a star with enough money. And Kamala, they've tried to turn her into a star. She's got a weakness, and I think Victor Davis Hanson is right on this, that he is convinced that she's very lazy. And I think Megyn Kelly is. Yeah, he was talking to Megyn Kelly, and he was like, she's just very lazy. Like, everything's been handed to her on a plate. So she just doesn't bother learning. She learns her lines okay. She's sort of okay. But she lacks the intellect, as you say, to be able to follow up on the idea. So she just repeats the same talking point over and over again. And I suppose what would be most concerning is why us as citizens and subjects seem to think that the people we elect to represent us not doing it is okay. It's like, no, Joe Biden we all knew what was wrong with Joe Biden, and people were saying it for years, even before he came out and launched his most recent presidential bid, which was successful. He looked out of it then. He looked gone then. So what is interesting as to why the American people, I suppose it comes down to apathy in the end, why the American people go, he's not really president. She's not really president. I quite like her. I vote Democrat. I vote Republican. Why?
Propaganda.
No one cares. I find it fascinating. I suppose the answer is to not care in return. But if you don't care in return, you get no coal-fired power stations, undocumented chickens, and storms where people die. So it is left to the conservative to try and conserve things, and that includes the even a mirage of democracy. But what do you think is going to happen with Trump? This will be broadcast after the Vance Walls debate, won't it? So what do you think is going to happen there? They're just going to say, whatever happens, he's just going to say, Walls was amazing. He did it brilliantly. J.D. Vance is vile, horrible. Ohio's not in play. Why is he trying to appeal to the redneck MAGA Republican? That's all that we're going to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, I think we touched on this in the last episode. I can't recall, but my eldest son, Michael, he went to law school with J.D. Vance, and he says Vance is very intelligent, and that's obvious. Listening to him, he's well educated, he's thoughtful, he's also aggressive in debate. He's an alpha male. He will be aggressive in debate. It all comes down to the format, of course. What it looks like. Listen, the Trump Harris debate was a joke. There was just nothing to it. It was Trump against three. They were fact-checking him, not fact-checking her, interrupting. The whole thing was designed to prop her up. And there's even suggestions that I find credible that she had an earpiece and that she was getting...
There's a video going around of her answering her phone on the ear rings. I don't know if it's true, but I imagine someone like her... Now, it's an actor's dream to have an earpiece. I had one once for a play because I was going through a very short-term traumatic experience, and my brain was just not there. And learning lines is a muscle. You have to use it, and you have to really know it. And I knew my brain well, and I was always a bit later than everyone else before I put the book down. If I was doing a play, say a 2-hour play, I would always be about 4 or 5 days behind everyone else, but I usually had a bigger part than it is, to be fair. I would put the book down, and this, I just it couldn't go in. It wouldn't go in. And I said to the production team, I said, I can't, and my brain is elsewhere too much of the day for me to be able to remember what I need to say, and there are some big, big, big speeches. And I had an earpiece, and I love it. And, on some level, I'm not against it, but I'm an actor, and they're expecting me to deliver a performance. She's putting herself up as a leader who's expected to react with, what happens when you need to make a big decision? You have the buck stops here idea, which is a sort of vaguely, it would be called white supremacy nowadays, I imagine, responsibility and all of that sort of stuff. But, we cannot live in a world where just because someone is brown, giggles a lot and talks about an opportunity economy without explaining what an opportunity economy is, other than to explain that it's equity. It's the first thing she says. That's not an opportunity economy. The words opportunity and equity do not live in the same building. There is no Venn diagram where those two things cross over. So I don't understand why the public... it'd be fascinating to see what the result of the election is, because in any world, you would think... I could see why they went after Trump in 2016. I could see why they would, his brash way of doing things would turn people off. But after this last 4 years of Biden and Harris, for people to think that voting for Harris would be in any way a decent idea, I just think, no, there's no way. He's got to smash it, doesn't he? I mean, and if he doesn't, then whoa, these little election riggers are in big trouble.
Yeah, well, between now and the election, I mean, I keep saying this. I'd love to be wrong. I will love for people to be able to dunk on me and tell me, Larry, you were wrong about this. But I keep saying they will burn the country to the ground before they let Trump take office. Now, will he win? He will win. He won last time. Will they announce that he won? No, I don't think so. The counting will mysteriously stop election night, and we'll be told some days later that she has miraculously won. They will be getting their read on how many bags of ballots they need to bring in to key districts in swing states. That's what they're going to do. So will there be further attempts on his life? Possibly. We might even be present for one of them. I mean, who knows? I mean, this is the world that we now live in. But to go back to where we started with all of this, we are now in a world where the left, they don't just simply represent what we would call liberal ideas, but they represent fundamentally anti-democratic, anti-human ideas. They have no appreciation for history. They have no appreciation for received wisdom. They have no respect for the Constitution of this country or your country. And they are about the acquisition of power at all costs. Everything is about the acquisition of power. And Elon Musk tweeted, maybe yesterday, maybe it's just a couple of days ago, but he tweeted that if Trump doesn't win this election, that free elections are over in the United States. Democracy, the republic, is over in this country. And he's exactly right. He is exactly right. That's where we find ourselves. And it's important to understand this, I think, Laurence, because people in this country, at least, only 31% of Americans have passports. So most have never left the country. And my European friends don't really understand that. They say, well, we go to several countries in a day, get in a car and, drive from Holland to Luxembourg to France to Germany all in a day. Well, the United States is essentially a continent. And it's very, very difficult for people to go anywhere other than a fishing trip to Canada, or maybe got drunk in Tijuana, or perhaps on a honeymoon cruise in the Caribbean. That more or less is it, especially when you consider that most Americans only get a couple of weeks of vacation a year. So it's difficult for them to get abroad. And the result of that, the negative side effect of that, is that many people, young people in particular, millennials and Gen Zers, when they're told that their country is an awful country, that it is a racist country, that is a racist history, this pseudo historian that Tucker Carlson had on, Daryl Cooper, who said that, quote, Churchill is the chief villain of the Second World War. They start believing these kind of things. And it's because they've not been anywhere else and gotten another perspective of America from other countries, which is very different. And of course, the reason our border is being overrun, your border is being overrun, is because people see it as the magic kingdom. They see it as the place where they want to come, where all their dreams come true. And so you have a lot of Americans in this country who are prepared, if not to burn the country to the ground, at least to allow it to be burned to the ground, because people are always, there's something in us, something in human DNA that we want change. Doesn't matter where we are. Things can be great, but we think that change is associated, at least in this country. It's like, I remember a Cambridge historian saying years ago when I was in school in the UK, he was saying, in the United States, your marketing, I don't know if this would be true there now, this was 30 years ago, but he said, we see in your marketing new splashed across the front of a box of detergent or a box of cereal. Because in the American mind, new means improved. He said that would never work in the UK. We would ask, well, what was wrong with the old formula? Why are you changing it? I don't know if that's true now, but in the American mind, I mean, if you think about it, Obama's campaign slogan was change. Just that word, change.
Yeah.
As though somehow that was going to magically bring something better. Well, sometimes change means something worse or even infinitely worse. And we're moving in the direction of the infinitely worse.
The change thing is interesting because actually now it's become trendy in the UK. The Keir Starmer, or I call him Weird Starmer, is talking a lot about change. But then just to reflect on this idea that the Democrat thing is all about protecting our democracy. That's what they keep saying all the time. And when I hear our democracy, I hear our tyranny or our control or, our hegemony over whatever's happening in the country. But is it not a mistake from Elon Musk's side of the argument to say things as hyperbolic as if the Democrats win, then it's the end of we're never going to have a free and fair election? Is that a sort of level of right-wing woke behavior or not?
Well, I'm sorry.
Are you in pain?
Just for a moment there. I'm sorry. Do me a favor and repeat that one more time.
No, I think I will repeat it one more time, but I think we should keep it in because this is what happens when you decide to, maliciously assault a car with your push bike. It's very aggressive.
It is. Yesterday I was at the pain clinic for the first time in a while, and it's always an interesting trip there because you see a lot of people who are there really just to get opioids. That's really what they're about.
Yeah.
In order to get opioids. But I've been having some real pain issues as of late, and they come just like that. They're like lightning. It feels like a sword being thrust through you, and then instantaneously it's gone. Which is, of course, an indication that it's nerves. It's a nerve issue. I have scarring on my spinal cord, they tell me, and the result of that is it's this tremor that I have, and sometimes these little episodes of pain. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought when that happened. So repeat that to me again.
I was just saying that change is now becoming a buzzword in the UK as well. So it's like, yeah, look at what Labour has changed. And I'm like,
yeah, of course.
So far you've not, or you have changed stuff, none of it good. And, everything you do is dreadful. But also there's this, that I think I was thinking about Elon Musk. I read that tweet of Elon Musk's and I was going, is he not doing what the Democrats do when they go, we have to protect our democracy? And I never know who the "our" is that they're talking. I mean, I know it's them, but I don't think it extends out to the population. So when Elon Musk says if Trump doesn't win, I totally agree with him, by the way, then there will never be a free and fair election in the United States ever again because you'll get Puerto Rico, you'll get a stacked court, you'll get the 2 extra states, I understand why he says it. But is that not falling into the trap that they've set for us, which is what, these people, these lovers of death, these leftist lovers of death want, is they want to goad you into fighting them. So
hyperbole.
Yeah. I mean, part of me thinks, no, hit them with hyperbole because it's the only thing that punches through the absolute wall of lies that you're confronted with every single day that you deal with a leftist. Because they can't operate, as we've said to each other frequently, they just cannot use language properly. They will always manipulate the language. So, I think you could probably find there was a thing about, sorry, my head's jumping around, my thoughts jumping around, but there was this thing, I heard a CNN person say that she doesn't need policies. Being the president isn't about policies, it's about the person. And I'm like, couldn't agree with you more. I agree with you, leftist. But then when I look at the person, I go, no, with her I want policies. Thanks very much. I need some. So I don't know. What do you think that Elon Musk is? I think his hyper-partisanship will entrench the division more than find that common ground with the independents. What do you reckon?
It's very hard to say. It's like fortune telling, isn't it? I mean, I think that Musk has been red pilled hard, to use a term that is currently fashionable. It started fairly slowly, and now it's reaching a crescendo, isn't it? I mean, the closer we get to the election, he realizes that he's enemy number two. Trump is number one, he's number two. And what he said that about was in response to, at least as I recall, maybe we can play it here. Maybe the guys can slip it in. But it's a statement by John Kerry in which Kerry said recently, did you see it?
Yeah.
Where Kerry is saying we need to end free speech. And he says, and if we win, we get in power, then maybe we can make some progress in this regard because we need to end the First Amendment. That needs to come to an end. And Musk realizes that, of course, as the guy who is operating the most important, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is the most important news site. That really is what it is now. It's not just simply a place for discussion. It's the only free speech platform that is really left. And hence the reason that he is a target. And he knows if they take office for another 4 years, that's over. That's over. And they'll find a way to not only destroy Twitter, but to destroy him personally, put him in jail, put Trump in jail, put anybody in jail who is, they see as somebody that's in their way. And they become very good at it. They have no conscience. They have no scruples. They have no regard for the rule of law, for the Constitution, for human beings, as we keep saying. So, no, I don't think it's hyperbole. I think it's accurate. I think that what we hear from the left is hyperbole. But I think it's accurate to say that this will be the end. This will be the end of free elections. It'll be the end of free speech.
So do you think then that all that we've witnessed over, let's just confine it to the last 5 years, that we have witnessed an unprecedented assault on free expression? We've witnessed an unprecedented assault on, individual bodily autonomy in all of those ways. And we're now, we're just fed a narrative and we're expected to suck it up. And Elon Musk has gone like this. Okay, well, that can't work because the First Amendment was put in place for a reason. And therefore I will protect it because, this country has given me everything I've got. And therefore I'm going to, he's a bit of an eco warrior on some ways. I've been watching films.
I've seen that.
And I kind of like it. He goes, the combustion engine is going to be like a horse. It's going to be like a fad. And I can see that. I can see in World War One. I can see them going, no, we need a cavalry charge. And it's like,
he wants a carbon tax. He wants a carbon tax. Yes, which I'm adamantly opposed to. But no, you're right. He is a little bit of an eco warrior. He's not a conservative. He's anti-woke, and there's a difference.
Yes. Okay. So, what is the difference between conservative and anti-woke?
Well,
as we say in the mother language.
Yeah, of course. Well, as I've said on a recent episode of Ideas Have Consequences, conservatism, authentic conservatism, is rooted in the Ten Commandments. It's rooted in those ideas. Everything is it's rooted in a notion that there are absolute rights and wrongs, that truth isn't relative, that right and wrong isn't relative. So it's born in a Judeo-Christian worldview. And it really, I would say modern conservatism, the father of modern conservatism is a former British parliamentarian, a man by the name of Edmund Burke, a great 18th century parliamentarian who was a real champion of the American Revolution and who condemned the French Revolution. And his own contemporaries said, well, you're being very inconsistent here. You said the colonists, we should let them go. But now that the French have overthrown their monarchy, that we shouldn't see this as a positive thing. And he said they're two very different things. He said the American Revolution, what they're basically doing is they're taking existing British tradition and tweaking it. A bicameral legislature. They're replacing a king with a president who is elected by the people. They're basing it on their legal system is based on English common law. Is based on a very Christian, a Judeo-Christian ideals. The French Revolution is seeking to annihilate all existing tradition. It's fundamentally atheistic and anti-human, and it will lead to the reign of terror. And he was right. He was absolutely right. But those are the differences. And so now what we're seeing with guys like, let's say, Trump. Trump is really a Democrat of, say, the 70s and 80s. That's what he is. He hasn't really moved much from that. Elon Musk is that. And we've seen that in Trump's platforming of an unrepentant pro-abortion porn star at the Republican National Convention. He's flipped on abortion. And I say flipped. He's only flipped politically. He was never a pro-lifer. Not really. He made a deal in 2016 with evangelicals in this country and said, if you elect me, I'll be your man. And he was. But that didn't reflect his own personal conviction. I don't think he has a strong, anti-abortion bone in his body. And now, since it behooves him to change on that, he has.
Yeah, I think that he's where most people who haven't thought about things really, 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 really deeply are, which is that there is...
Well said.
That's what I think. It's you if you have a very serious conversation with yourself or with anybody else about absolutes, which Christianity is full of them, and B, then the mankind manifestation of that, which would be something like abortion. I think he just wants to not think about God at all, but he wants to lean towards God. So, it's like, it's the Russell Brand conversation that we had last week.
It's traditionalism. And see, and that's as smart as Elon Musk is, I don't think he has a really deeply thought out political philosophy or religious philosophy in that regard.
Why should he?
Scientifically.
Why should anyone?
Why should
anyone?
Well, certainly.
Why should anyone? Why does it behoove anybody to have a deeply thought out view on anything? It's left to the people that really think about these things to have the deeply thought out view and then to offer it up to people, and they can either accept it or not accept it. But one of the two things that is absolutely without question is, one, on abortion, people are overwhelmingly fine with a first trimester abortion. I mean, you're never going to move that dial. I don't think until technology becomes so good that you can show the development of a child up to 12 weeks, until technology will do that, which they're not going to let us see, we're not going to be in a position where we can actually make an informed choice about that. And then to take it back to the Christian, the world view, which is everything that they're trying to destroy, which is absolutism. So thou shalt not kill. That's a commandment. You can't kill. But then we're talking. So this is why I'm sort of trying to put myself in their mindset. We're talking. We're getting to this point where we go. These people are so against living that we almost feel that they should be denied an opportunity to be represented, seek power. They should be kept so far away from power as possible because they hate human beings so much. And there's very strong sentiments that we're espousing on this stuff. And I just worry a little bit that it's not the right thing to demonize Trump for not having a serious view on abortion. It's better to look at him as someone who, why should he have one? Surely that's by the tripartite system in America. Surely that would be down to the Supreme Court. And he brought in Dobbs, came in under him, right? So he's done more to make abortion something that you can talk about than anybody else in American history, in recent American history. So I think we have to weigh it up.
Well, listen, the obvious answer to why should he have a well-thought-out political philosophy is because he's running for president, and he was president. And the same is true for Elon Musk, not because he's president or running for president, but because he is operating the largest political platform in the world. It would behoove him, before he pronounces definitively on a lot of these things, to have thought them out fairly carefully. But that said, I'm not demonizing Trump, not demonizing him at all. And what you've just said is absolutely true. He has done more for the pro-life cause than any president in U.S. history. There's no question about that. I'm simply pointing out that guys like Trump, guys like like Peterson, guys like Musk, they're not conservatives per se. They're anti-woke. And that's not a criticism. You don't have to be a conservative. I'm just simply pointing out that sometimes people who are conservatives confuse them with conservatives. They assume that they are. And I just want to say what has happened in recent years, that with the Democrat Party and the global left going so bonkers, is that it has moved a number of people who otherwise sat on the left side of the political spectrum, and in some sense still do. But it began a kind of political, and in some cases a spiritual journey for these people. You might even, fall into this camp a little bit, in the sense that you became politically active when you saw what wokedom was doing. And you're just thinking, I'm not part of this. I don't want to be a part of this. I will not be a part of this. There are guys like Trump who began that journey a long time ago, so that they left the Democrat Party and went to the Republican Party, not because they were truly conservative in their political outlook or traditionally Republican, but because the Democrat Party had moved so far to the left and had become, for Trump, what is intolerable is that they're anti-American. They're fundamentally anti-American. So I think what you see in guys like Trump and Musk, and those are just two that come immediately to mind, is I would just call them, for lack of a better term, I would call them anti-woke traditionalists. They're people who kind of like the status quo. Change, this kind of change, to come back to that word, is not what they wanted. And they recognize that change isn't the way some people seem to think it is, like just rearranging, the chairs on the lawn. We're talking about a massive overhaul of your way of life, of your very existence. And this is what the left wants to do. And Trump could perceive that. He could see that this is what they were about. He saw that early on. Musk sees that that's what they're about. And I think he's trying to wake people up to the fact. And his journey has been, he's been red-pilled so hard, so rapidly, that it's been as recently as, maybe a year? At most 2 years ago, that Musk was openly mocking Trump on Twitter. And now he's offering his platform. He is telling people, you had better vote for him, or free elections and free speech are over. I mean, it's been that quick for Elon Musk. It's pretty incredible, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. So there's a device in drama from Stanislavski, which you're trained in relentlessly. And I should have understood. I should actually look into the politics behind Stanislavski. But as an actor, you are always trained that you need to have a super objective. So your super objective in the play, if you're James Bond, is to find out who runs Spectre. That's your super objective. And then within the scenes of that play, you have little objectives, which is I want to get closer to Mr. X to find out about Mrs. Y, whatever. So the point of the super objective is that it always has to be positive. We were trained this, and I've not even looked back on it and wondered whether it was true or not. So the difference between the anti-woke traditionalist is that they are essentially anti-something. They don't have a super objective, whereas a conservative has a super objective. And
they know what they're against, but not what they're for. Is that fair?
Yeah. So therefore, so the confidence that one has to have, or one has to try and inject, a Christian would say that the moment that Jesus Christ came into their life was the biggest, most profound change in the world. In the same way as a climate activist would say, the minute they realized about global warming, that was the most important aspect in their life. Do you know what I mean? So I'm interested as to why God put this difficult conundrum in front of us, where he allows the other side to use exactly the same methods to confuse us as we have to stick to in order to be truthful. I think it's so. I think it's so wonderful. To me, when I sort of break it down in my own head, it makes me think God is super confident in his worldview. Super confident because he made it. So confident that he will allow everyone to trash it, which is why free speech is so important. You know what I mean? Because the truth will not sort of. I don't think the truth is going to be won by Elon Musk's Twitter feed. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that Donald Trump is the savior of America. I think Donald Trump is a vehicle whereby America can save itself. And I agree with Elon
Well
Musk
said.
that without Donald Trump, America is going to be a blip in history. And, people are talking about this a lot nowadays. And one wonders whether this, 20 million migration across the border is going to make any difference. But then you think about, okay, so this happens in the UK a lot. You find that they're socially conservative Muslim people who've come here and really struggled to build a life. Not the extremist element, but they're very Muslim. They're all of that sort of stuff. But they're culturally very conservative. They don't like the extremist element. So I think the reflection of that in America would be, Mexican Americans in California going, I'm going to vote for Trump. That's a number which is growing. And then you look at young people, those that are going to be voting for their first time this time round, hugely leaning conservative, especially men. And so one wonders whether we're making all of a fuss about nothing, which is that this imbalance or this disturbance in the force may not actually have a natural remedy, which is that people cannot put up with things that are chaotic and crazy and mad. And that's what people like Peterson and everyone piped up and focused into. He did Chaos and Reason, Yin and Yang. It's been going on forever, this sort of stuff, whether you just need these signposters, these torch bearers to turn around and point us roughly in the right direction, which is why free speech is so important, whether it be yours, mine, Peterson's, or Musk's.
Well, for sure. The traditional American view has been that I defend your right to say what you want to say. That Louis Farrakhan, or you name the figure, can get on Twitter and say what they want to say, but I can too. And the organization that I founded, Fixed Point Foundation, was founded really on that principle, because I believed very strongly when we founded Fixed Point in 2004 that what wasn't happening was dialogue in the culture between various ideologies. And so I more or less shamed those representing what I consider to be fairly pernicious ideologies into debate. You say that my worldview as a Christian is cracked and flawed. Well, what do you say that we debate the issue? And you get equal time. I get equal time. You get to rebut me. I get equal time to rebut you. What do you say? I mean, it's fair. It's open. It's rational. It's civil. And it worked. It worked brilliantly, so that we were able to put together a number of high-level academic debates at places like Oxford University and Princeton and Melbourne Town Hall in Australia and various other interesting places, these high-level academic discussions on, say, things like the existence of God or the rationality of a Judeo-Christian worldview, or Islam? Does it fit with the West or doesn't it? Or gay marriage? These were all in the attempts to shut us down repeatedly, particularly on gay marriage, which was very interesting. The efforts to shut us down, say, no, this debate is over. You're not allowed to have this discussion. Well, no, we are allowed to have this discussion, and we're going to. And you'd pack a concert hall. I remember the first debate we were putting together was a debate with Richard Dawkins. And between him and my dear friend and his Oxford colleague, Professor John Lennox, a mathematician at Oxford. And in Birmingham, Alabama, I went to the Alice Stevens Center, which holds, 1,250 people. It's the kind of place where Tony Bennett has performed and, that sort. And the manager was touring me around the place, and he said, what kind of event you going to have here? And I said, well, it'll be a debate between an atheist and a Christian. And he kind of raised an eyebrow and looked at me and said, and where are these guys from? And I said, they're both actually from Oxford University. He kind of smirked and he said, I don't think you're going to need a venue of this size to hear a couple of pointy-headed intellectuals debate God's existence. And I said, I think you're going to be very surprised. And of course he was. You had, the London Times were there, and the Wall Street Journal was there, and BBC was there, and Fox News was there. It packed the place. But again, the point that I'm trying to make is that we deem free speech to be very important, so much so that we still feel like that you can trust people to make up their own minds when given the facts. And you see, the guys like John Kerry and saying we want to shut down free speech, they're saying we're the people who are riding in the Mercedes. We're the people who get out and are full of our own self-importance, that we have an entourage that leads us from one place to the next and will determine what you are and are not allowed to do, and what you are and are not allowed to say, and what you are and are not allowed to hear. I don't think that the people are perfect when it comes to making their own decisions, but I would rather trust the common man in the street, his wisdom, over that of an elitist like John Kerry.
Yeah. I mean, yes, on all fronts. This is what I found interesting about Rebel Ridge. The film I was talking about to you earlier was that there's something so confident about knowing that there is a truth. You don't need to push it and pull it. It just is there. And there's something deeply unconfident about people that the truth is a malleable thing to fit to which any ideology they wish to attach it to that month. But what I found so disappointing about that film was he was like, I know everything, but I knew it was going to end in a gunfight. And, I sort of look at the whole process of all of this and I go, what John Kerry is saying, nobody in America, even blind ideologues, I would imagine, will be going, really? Free speech finished forever? There's such a small percentage of people that would agree with John Kerry on that you actually have to go back.
But I mean,
how would you
I'm sorry, Laurence, let me throw this in. Imagine the arrogance of a statement like that.
Oh, don't even get me there. I find that man... also, why do they always look a little bit like Frankenstein? Sorry to be ad hominem about it, but it's like, why do people who have decided and made it their mission to live a life which no one else is ever going to live, ever. So no one else is going to get on a jet, fly somewhere and lecture people about climate while being married to one of the richest heiresses on earth. Who's been installed. I mean, he ran for president, Kerry, didn't he? The guy is a complete and utter void of darkness. And you think, why? How did the political class, or how did we as we have this wonderful idea that we matter. How did that guy get to represent us? How did David Lammy get to represent Britain on the world stage? This guy is...
Because they're actors.
No, I get it, but I'm an actor, but they killed me off. So I'm trying to work out why in the drama I'm killed off early doors, whereas if it was an 80s movie, I would just be laid out on the bed with a bottle of vodka fallen off to the side, bottle of whiskey on the other side, wake up, smoke a cigarette, cough, and then I find out that the Nakatomi Tower has been taken over. You know, what happened in culture where we'd stopped thinking that that was the best story to tell? Man, broken man becomes, against all the odds, becomes the guy that saves the day. And we replaced it with guy who never loses his temper, with the assistance of a non-binary person loses his temper at the end. And it's just like, oh, God, just stop.
And it was always a bit of a pretty boy. It was always a bit of a pretty boy these days.
Mm.
I was watching, to your point, you make me think of an example that illustrates perhaps how right you are. The other night, I watched one of my favorite movies. Every year, I watch it
Casablanca?
At least once. Casablanca. And what a great film. But here's Bogart, who is wearing platform shoes so that, Ingrid Bergman is not taller than he is. I read that she had to slouch on a scene on the couch so that, that he wasn't taller. But Bogart is the hero, and he's slight of frame. He's definitely not muscly. He's a guy that looks even just a little, maybe just a little unhealthy because of his chain smoking, much like you. And yet he's the hero of the story, kind of broken, just as you said. He's been broken by a woman. He's become very cynical about the world, cynical politically, but he rises to the occasion, and he is a patriot. He is a hero. He is a man of courage. He's a man who's willing to risk it all for his country, for freedom, for the woman that he loves. What a great story. And the dialogue in that is hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such a quotable movie, but it's to your point. And yet, in spite of the fact that he's not all muscly, as my wife would say, he radiates alpha male.
Well,
I mean, he comes off as a guy who, he comes off as a guy who's been around and has had some real bumps and bruises in life. And you feel like if you were to touch his hands that they might be calloused just a little bit. He's not one of these modern pretty boys.
Yeah, to nick your von Clausewitz from last week about that, war is just politics by other means. I think that show business is just politics by other means, and
Interesting.
In that era, everything was built with the superjective in mind. This Stanislavskian idea that you have to aim for something positive. The point of telling a story is that you tell a story with a positive end. It's another biblical thing. It's the parable idea. It's all of this sort of stuff. And we had this, and it was our format. And we made films that kept our culture upright. And we did it deliberately because we knew that our culture was going to be attacked by those that didn't love our culture. So we had almost a format, which was, I want out of this to see that a man can come good, a woman can come good, a kid can come good. Look, White Men Can't Jump. All of those films about these little college basketball teams that Samuel L. Jackson turned into heroic, wonderful. Like the whole thing was like hope, optimism, can do, will do, brilliant. And now the whole thing is just sleepy and tired, and it's
cynical and dark.
But as I had a Muslim guy around to lunch the other day because I find him really fascinating, and I think I told you he was saved from becoming a proper violent jihadist by the fact that he was a gay guy. He's gay, so he realised that I can't, get involved in that because they want to throw me off the top of a building. And he said it's very difficult for a culture to defend itself if it doesn't know what its values are. So he said that's your weakness. He said that's our weakness actually, because he's a British guy, and he said it's our weakness. We don't know what we're actually trying to defend. And that's when the absolutes come back into play. The fact that we've been left with a bunch of absolutes by God. Societies have been built around them, and they've thrived more than any other society on earth. Oh, we have this, one of the prime ministerial candidates not prime ministerial, the Conservative Party leadership candidates, Kemi Badenoch, who I know actually, and she's a very thoughtful person. She's brilliant on critical race theory. She's a she's full Nigerian woman, I think, but British as well. And she was very clever, because you cannot criticize the religion of peace, right? It's impossible. You do, and it's the worst thing. So she turned around and she said two things this week which have made her like the world's biggest enemy in the United Kingdom, which are that two very simple truths. One of them is that not all cultures are equal or equally valid. And the second one was she said that we should not in the United Kingdom be even tolerating cultures that allow child marriage and death sentences for blasphemy and stuff like that. And the way she put it really was to say we cannot tolerate those that hate Jews in our country. So that was the way she dog whistled it for our friends on the left who call that a racist dog whistle. And actually it's been greeted with quite a lot of, someone said it. So we have this weird political situation in the country where we have this insurgent right-wing party called Reform, who are being outflanked by the actual next Conservative leadership, possibly all to be sort of mulched back up into a uni-party system. But my takeaway from it all is that you're never going to unconvince someone of something that they've become or been forced to be convinced by. So if people think that climate change is real, they're going to believe it. And the tragic events in America are going to just give them a reason to go, look, you see more climate change. It's bad. So, and you're never going to convince people that abortion, that life begins at conception. You're not going to do it. It's the amount of societal unraveling that you would have to do to make that even something that a politician would talk about in the United Kingdom, and I mean in America I know they do talk about it, is just so profound. It would take decades of careful training to say, well, okay, but when does life begin then? Because people don't want to ask. They go, oh, it's come cells, I made a mistake, what are you going to do? People don't want to think deeply about these things at all. And I can really understand why they don't want to. I am empathetic to why they don't want to, because once you do think about it, you end up at an absolute. And absolutes don't get you voted in, So maybe that's why God left his own back door open. And he went, I'll let you guys argue it out and see whether the truth wins. And I love you anyway.
Well, in the end, truth does win. We do know that. And, I had a public speaking engagement this last week, and I pointed out to the audience that when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, in John 14:6, that when you think about that, is the most politically incorrect statement of all time. I mean, it is the most anti-woke statement. I mean, you talk about absolutes. He's nullifying every other way, every other means of life, every other truth claim. He's saying, as A.W. Tozer put it, a theologian of another generation, he said, God says, I am that I am, and everyone and everything must measure from that fixed point. And that, I think, puts a rather nice bow on this discussion today. Don't you?
I do. I can just see you giving that talk and Pope Francis and his entourage standing up and leaving once you said that I am the way, the truth, and the light, and there's no way to follow but through me. I can see Pope Francis standing up going, who is this lunatic? No.
I have to tell you that one of the biggest hits of that presentation was I did a Jordan Peterson imitation, and the audience just lost it. And I said, I wasn't prepared for my imitation to have been deemed good enough to elicit such laughter. And I said, what you've just seen is my imitation of Laurence Fox's imitation of Jordan Peterson. So that
I
it's
want to
my
hear it,
imitation
Larry.
of Laurence Fox's. It's my imitation of Laurence Fox's imitation. So I have to give you, my acting coach, all the credit.
Well, then here is the bow. Robert Altman, Maggie Smith died. One of our great actors died this week, and Robert Altman turned around to me because he befriended me when I did Gosford Park, and obviously he was a big American filmmaker. And he turned around to me and he said, the only authentic performance of a policeman in any film was the first performance of a policeman, because everybody else was just copying someone who played a policeman. And, and that's, I suppose that's sort of the hurly-burly of what we're trying to get to the bottom of, which is what is authentic and what is not, and how does one deal with those that are wrong.
I think we'll end on that note. This has been another edition of WTF, the world according to Taunton and Fox. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you. What the fuck? Love you.
You just had to do it, didn't you?
I did.